Hello, everybody, and welcome to the March 29th, 2022 iteration of the Kubernetes SIG Windows community meeting. As always, these meetings are recorded and uploaded to YouTube, so be sure to adhere to the CNCF Code of Conduct. Right, we can get started. Announcements. Code freeze is sometime tonight or tomorrow morning, depending on what time zone you are in. I think that there was a message to KDev about code freeze. As always, try and get them in earlier. Everything. I think we can spend a little bit of time today going over some of the PRs that we want merged, especially if some of the Red Hat folks are here. I'm interested in the node service log viewer cap. We can do that later. New contributors, if there's anybody on the call that wants to introduce themselves. I think actually everybody that's on the call right now has been here before. So, I think a couple new people joined. But yeah, if there's anybody who wants to introduce themselves, feel free to go ahead and we can, help answer any questions you have and help out in any way we can. If not, we can keep going. Okay, next I wanted to talk a little bit about Open 124 PRs. Looks like the PodOS, that enhancement I think is pretty much all the way done. The code changes merged, I think sometime last week, and the docs changes just merged today. So I think that's good. Arvind, did you want to give an update on the node log viewer cap?
Yeah, sure. So we had a last minute hiccup regarding that. Chris was working on it, had some personal stuff to take care of, but we should be back on track today, but we most likely we need an exception for this if it has to go into 124. My plan is to work with Chris today, and there's a bunch of work in progress commits that were mainly added to address some of the SIG CLI comments that came from Mache, and Mache has now approved the PR. We need approvals from Node and API. I'm pretty confident of getting the Node approval. API is what I'm a bit worried about, but I'm going to spend the rest of the day today just to make sure that the PR is in good shape. We squash merge the commits and things like that.
Okay.
So
yep.
I'm not sure, Mark, do you initiate the exception request, or does Chris or I have to do it?
I can help with that. The process changes slightly each release, just due to whoever is on the release team. I need to look that up again. Yeah, Arvind and I spoke a little bit earlier in the week, and I'm happy to help submit an exception request for this. I would like to see the hopefully get the API review, at least LGTM, before we submit the request. Usually, yeah. We can hold off a couple of days to get the request done, or
okay.
to submit the request too. So
I see.
Yeah, I think for this, the next order of business is clean up the PR. We'll try hard to get the reviews that we need, and then we can either submit an exception request without those and say we're just waiting for final review, or ideally we can come back and say this is here's an exception, this is enough a feature, so it should be safe to put in and it's all reviewed. We just need a little bit of more time.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah, if by I think let's plan on putting that together by like Friday, the exception, and I'll work with you on Slack for that. All right, yeah, I really would hope to see this get added. I know folks were pretty excited for the demo. Or after the demo with everything this could.
Yeah, and just so folks know, it's when I demoed it, it was kubectl log. It was under kubectl logs. Mache wanted us to move it from kubectl logs to kubectl alpha. There's apparently an alpha option with kubectl, so we've moved it under there. Once the code freeze and all that is done, I will go and update the update the enhancement to say that we're going to introduce it under kubectl alpha, but when we go from alpha to beta, we'll try and move it. We'll move it from the alpha thing to back to logs.
Sounds good. Yeah, I think that makes sense. Okay. Anything else to discuss about that, Kep, or I think we're all covered?
Yeah, nothing for me. If anybody else has questions, happy to answer them.
Okay, next, I think we talked a little bit about the pod OS, kept that merged. One thing that Ravi highlighted is that it looks like, I think he said that there was some mention of maybe the beta APIs are going to be off by default in 124. So we'll follow up on that. That might be an extra step needed to enable beta features and that may be new.
We do not need to do anything in this case. That's what I was suggesting earlier, because if the new field is part of a stable API, we do not need to do anything. Meaning meaning if the feature kit is enabled, it would work. Yeah.
So Mark, do we need to worry about some other beta APIs that we care about in Windows?
I need to check. I think, James, do we need to worry about is this auto scaling APIs? Are those still beta?
Like the HPA ones?
Yeah, or is that just part of scheduling?
Yeah, there's like a subset of container schedule HPAs that are in beta, but
I know
that's only if you're using those specific ones.
Okay. That's a good question, Arvind. I think let's take an action item to maybe revisit that next week. I'm not super familiar with which all APIs are still in beta that we may be using.
Host process would be in beta.
Well, host process is just on the V1 pod, which is stable. It's only the whole. If I understood Ravi's comment correctly, it's only if the whole API version is beta, right?
Yeah, and for the existing beta APIs, it is still going to be the same. Like we're going to serve the beta APIs. I believe the auto scaling is an existing beta API, so they're going to be served beta only.
Okay, so Ravi, I think then maybe we should restate what you're saying. You're saying that any newly introduced beta APIs are going to be not served, but the existing ones will be served. Is that how it works?
That is correct. And
okay.
The link that I've mentioned talks about that.
Okay, so then we are safe, Mark. It's only the newer ones that are coming out. So if there are any existing ones that we depend on, they'll still be served.
Okay, yeah, let's still follow up on this next week too. I'll do. Just to make sure. But I think that makes sense. And you could maybe provide a little bit more guidance closer to the release if needed. Next was something that I was planning on potentially demoing. I'll hold off now. I think, David, did you want to talk about see you adding some items?
Yeah, can everyone hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that there was a new cumulative update released actually last week, I think. It includes, and the cumulative update has been released for server 2022 and 2019 and contains some changes that address an issue that some users had where they tried to create a service with over 64 backends. They tried to plumb 65 or more backend pods for one service, and it was failing. That limitation has now been removed, and the new limit has been set to 1024 instead. So more pods backing a service.
Okay, excellent. I'll probably move this up to the announcements. Well, you said was this part of the cumulative updates or the optional updates?
The optional updates. It will become part of the next security release as well.
Okay, yeah, so it'll be part of 4B, right?
Yes, correct.
Okay, maybe in April then, when it's in 4B, you can do another announcement saying this is should be default now. It doesn't need to. People don't need to install the optional package.
Okay, makes sense.
Awesome, thank you. Is there anything else you wanted to add about that, or just letting people know that this issue should be resolved?
No, I mean, I guess just try it out and let us know if you run into any issues. That's all I had here.
Okay. Sounds good. Does anybody have anything else they want to talk about? If not, I can give kind of an update about some of the host process work that we've been doing to improve the experience while it's still in beta. But I'll open the floor up now. Oh, Jay, I did want to ask you, I saw the release, somebody from either the enhancements or the release team ping about the Windows, the operational readiness cap. Do you want to, can you give an update on that? Is anything happening?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't think there was any paperwork to do yet, but I know that there's progress that's been made because Ameem, you and Chinchi, is Ameem here? Ameem and Chinchi are both working on it, and they got stuck in a bunch of GMSA stuff, and they're working on that with James. So I was just thinking we could just not do anything, but I didn't understand whether they actually need. I don't know.
Let me check. I think
I started a thread about it because I was like, I don't think we need to do anything.
is this. Oh, is issue.
What? Did we close it? That's
so-
not right either.
I forgot. I need to go look at this. Windows. This is. It says it's tracked. We may want to have this be tracked out of tree because I don't think that there was I think the enhancements team or the release team is looking specifically to see if any of the PRs needed in Kubernetes are going to merge before the code freeze. And I think that there are some test changes there too, but so at a minimum, we can probably just link to the test changes here.
Oh.
Yeah, I think that's what they're looking. I've been doing this for some of the other caps, but sorry, I haven't been doing it for this.
No,
cap.
yeah, I'm happy to do it. I just didn't. I saw that and I didn't really understand what. Would you mind confirming there are no?
Let's see.
I mean, I could just say yes to that, right? 2578.
Yeah.
I'll just say yes. I confirm.
You can say yes, and then it might be. You can maybe ask for this to be tracked out of tree, and that's usually how things that are like projects that are primarily in like Kubernetes SIGs, Kubernetes CSI, those other GitHub orgs and repos are in.
Oh, that's what that is all about. I got it. I got
most of the work here, like I think there is some work there was some work that was done with GMSA to improve the test cases that I know went in, but my understanding was most of the work was going to be in the out of like not in the Kubernetes repository.
Yeah, okay, I'm responding now.
Okay.
We will track this out of tree. And the only thing we need to track here is once the work is 100% completed, because then we will make changes in KK to consume it in CI. Is that a reasonable thing to say?
Yeah, I think that makes
Okay,
sense.
cool.
And those changes into KK probably, well, I'm guessing they're not going to merge today, so we'll need to go to 125.
Yeah.
And then I'll try and remember this too, but as there are PRs, even in other repositories that go open or that get open, we should try and list them in the enhancements description. This is usually what the release team or the enhancement team looks at. I think they trust that any of the needed PRs to progress the enhancements are linked here and all merged. And it's so
Yeah.
Okay, I guess any other updates for this? Otherwise, we can continue. agenda.
I don't have anything else. I'm still bouncing around that networking thing. I really want to do it. I saw last week we have another meeting on Thursdays that is a triage meeting. How much time do we spend in that meeting? I'm wondering, what if we double purpose that or something? Or what if we extend it to longer so I don't create a new meeting? You know, like.
So that is usually we clean up the board, and we usually spend the full half hour on that.
Okay. So what
I
if
could
we
stay an extra half hour? Also, I think just given where we are in the product cycle, we could potentially take that slot one time and see if it's worthwhile, and then look for a more permanent home for the meeting.
Yeah, I feel like we could just kind of we do that every Thursday. I can just start coming to that triage, and then after the triage is over, because there's going to be networking issues, of course. I mean, 50% of all Kubernetes issues are networking issues. So, after that, we can sort of just casually do some networking stuff, and then that way we're not doing a bunch of paperwork to make a new meeting, and we're just sort of double dipping into the one we already have. And also because it's very difficult for me to always make this Tuesday meeting anyways, and I feel like maybe I can help you all out more that way, and maybe some other people can start joining that too, and we can make that more of build some more community around that second meeting. How many people are going to that right now?
I think if we want to do all of this, right, we need to sort of restate what that meeting is, because if we at the moment it's like what is it called, backlog refinement?
The backlog refinement meeting.
Yeah, if we're going to do more like technical stuff there rather than just the refinement, we need to state that somewhere. Otherwise, people are not going to show up.
Yeah, I was going to propose.
I was just going to secretly do more at the end of it so that it doesn't actually cause any problems for anybody.
Then you're just going to be doing it with maybe me and Mark and James and just a few other people.
I like you guys. That's fine.
Maybe for this week, Jay, I'll see if we can find one of us can send a mail to the SIG Windows mailing list and say, hey, we want to pilot a new meeting series or a new time to discuss this. We're going to use the SIG Windows triage meeting this week, send out the time, and then just let people know then, so that if anybody's interested in the networking stuff, and doesn't attend this meeting, they can come. And then maybe after this Tuesday meeting, we can figure out.
Yeah, we can just
what to do there.
And I mean, I'm open to generalizing the topic of that meeting if it's useful, but I don't want to.
Yeah, I do think that every other Tuesday meeting or every other Thursday meeting that we have for the backlog refinement is valuable, and I do want to keep that long term.
Yeah.
Too.
Yeah, definitely. Like I have no intention of changing that meeting. So let's keep it as is, and then I'll send an email to the SIG Windows thing that we're gonna start experimenting with extending it into doing some networking work afterwards, just to see how many people are interested, and if it turns into a thing, then we can have a.
Sounds good.
The only reason I'm thinking that is just I just feel like I just don't know how many people are going to come, and I don't want to create a meeting just for the sake of making a new meeting,
What if I've seen a lot of other folks make pretty heavy use of Poly is it Poly?
What's that?
I think I need to double check. I might be crossing some wires. There's like a web service that you can kind of propose a couple of times for meetings, and then send out a link, and then anybody who's interested in coming to the meeting can say what times are available, and then that can be used to help find a meeting time. We could also do
Oh
that
yeah.
once potentially. I think
There's
it's
a .NET library called Poly too. That's
But the reason I never
exponential
do that is
backhouse.
because we did that for we did that once for the network policy meeting, and then a whole bunch of people had opinions in Europe, and not a single person from Europe came, and so we're waking up at 7 in the morning for no reason to go to a meeting that, and I'm not against doing a poly poll. I'm just like, let's just do it in. Let's see if anybody comes to the first one, and then maybe do a informal poll is what I'm thinking.
okay. Yeah, let's still send out a mail to the mailing
Okay.
list. If because otherwise it's probably just going to be the same audience as normal, which is
Yeah, let's do a formal.
James,
Okay.
sometimes Claudio, sometimes Jamie, yeah, other people, but I don't think anybody knew.
Kubernetes SIG. You know what? I love the fact that we have that Slack update because I didn't even know about that. Okay, cool. I need. Okay, I'm going to set up my Google groups and I'm going to make an announcement, and I am going to take into account what Arvind and you all said about we don't want to. I'm going to carefully word it so it's very clear we're not changing the existing meeting. We're just going to do an experimental.
I think this week we can change the meeting and see if people think, just because there's not going to be much backlog refinement that's going on, because
Okay.
we're going to be past code freeze. If anything, we're just going to be moving a bunch of issues to the backlog or slipping issues, which I don't think we need a meeting for, but there's nothing to, prioritize at this point.
Mhm.
Cool.
Okay.
All right. I can give a couple of updates on the host process container work that we're doing, and then probably next week we'll have a demo and do more work with that. So one of the main kind of user experience pieces that we were trying to solve, especially before going to stable, was how volume mounts show up in these host process containers. There's a lot of information about how the current behavior is in the KEP, and I believe in the docs on the Kubernetes website. But it's not really ideal. So today, that if anybody is not familiar with host process containers, I think people should and are interested, read some of the KEP. There's a lot of information in there, and everything is accurate to how they function today. But basically, because we're starting job objects on the host and there's no file system virtualization, any mounts that are at well-known paths, like the big one is the service account token stuff. We had to figure out where to move that, because otherwise right now, all of the host process containers can potentially see the volume mounts of other host process containers, because it is just something running on the host. So there's no way we couldn't just put the volume mounts at the same places that they appear in normal Windows Server containers, because they would conflict. Like the secrets account is at like var run secrets service account, I believe. If all of the host process containers were to try and mount and put things on that path, they would conflict. So what we ended up doing for the alpha and the beta user experience is there's a directory. Each host process container gets a new directory under C:C, which is a little bit confusing. And then there's a new volume that gets added, and that's the contents of the layer or of the container image at C:C, and then a GUID, and that GUID is the container image or the container ID. And then any other volume mounts that get added to it are going to get added under that. That kind of works, and there is an environment variable that points you to that C:/C GUID for the current running container. So the container workload can know how to find its directory, and also all the volume mounts under that. What doesn't quite work are any libraries that assume kind of paths in container images. The big one being the in-cluster config way of authenticating to the API server as the service account that the container is running into. So we've been experimenting with what we can do to change that. And I think Danny has a branch of HCS shim open. Let me open up the KEP. This might make more sense. I know we only have like a minute left, but so what we've been experimenting with is adding in a layer of file system virtualization into host process containers. And there's some trade-offs with that that we can get into next week. But the big thing is that now, or with an approach that we're prototyping, there's basically a union of the host OS's file system, and so all of the different host process containers can see the host's file system kind of as is, and then each host process container has like a virtualized view of that, and then any of the payload that comes in with the container and all of the volume mounts that only that container can see. So they do act more like how you would expect containers to look, except that they can also see everything that the host sees and write and persist data to the host, which was one of the explicit goals of the host process containers. There's a couple of things that are different about that will definitely make sure to where is this? That will definitely make sure to document if we do go with this approach. The big question that we had, though, is that it looks like some of the Windows 8, or the big issue that we're running into right now, here's some information about how this works, is that a lot of the APIs needed to do that from the Windows system are currently only available on Windows. They were introduced in the Windows, I think, 1903 SAC release and later. So they're available on Windows Server 2019 or on 2022, but they're not available on Windows Server 2019 yet. Some folks in Microsoft, Brandon Smith, myself, were trying hard to figure out if we can backport those and have those kind of become available in 2019. But that is still still TBD. If not, then I think we're going to need to have a discussion as a community what we want to do here. Do we want to stick with do we want to maintain consistency between Windows OS versions for 2019 and 2022, at the risk, I think, of having a suboptimal kind of user experience? Do we want to update the HCS shim so that it's smart enough to know if I'm running on Windows Server 2022, give me the good experience. If I'm running on 2019, give me the less good experience? That could cause some confusion and maybe make it harder to author container images that work on both, or what we want to do there. So I think we're going to keep the community updated, but that's what we've been working on. And I also think that this is probably the biggest issue that we want to solve before we go to beta, or before we promote host process containers to stable. So we're over time. I'll stay, and if anybody has any specific questions about that, if not, we can dig into this in some of the upcoming community meetings, and hopefully have planning on those discussions before 125, in case we do either have those APIs backported and available in 2019, or need to make some decisions about what to do with the feature for 125. So yeah, if anybody has any questions, comments, concerns, you can ask me here. You can ask us in Slack. We are working on this, and it is top of mind.
Thanks for that.
Yeah, if not, I think I'm gonna hop over to SIG Node now.
SIG Node got canceled.
Oh, did it? Okay, thought I'm gonna stay here.
Looking at this, I'm wondering whether this ties in so much with the networking stuff, because we're working so much on this at VMware, the host process Antria stuff, and then host process CSI stuff. I'm just like,
Are you familiar with all of the kind of reference images that we do have in SIG Windows tools?
I think somebody showed, wasn't Jamie showing us something? Jamie was doing some stuff with this, or was this, is this, oh, here it is. Okay, no, this is different.
So these are,
Yeah.
I guess this is probably one of the more complete collections of examples of building containers that are, I think, a little bit more complicated than just running something, than just running a service. Like they have setup and things as host process containers. So if you guys are doing this at VMware or looking for how to run, other CNIs in host process containers, I would definitely check this out. James has, examples of running Calico and Flannel along with kubeproxy in host process containers, and these have the full, build script and everything. And let's see, to highlight this, there's the Docker file, there's the workload that comes in. Here's an example of extra work that we need to do since we don't have that, some workarounds that we need to do because of the current way that volume mounts are set up. So the hopes would be if we can improve that user experience, this would go away. But you'll see here that instead of just being able to call like the in-cluster config methods on the libraries for the Kubernetes REST APIs in order to authenticate with API server, we need to go a little bit out of our way to build up to find the tokens for the service account that we have in order to authenticate as that service account. And it's not that hard if you know where to look, but it is just an extra kind of issue that like an extra piece of work that each host process container needs to do with the current way that volume mounts are set up.
Okay.
So they basically grab the secrets from the service account volume mount that gets mounted in and build a kube config with those secrets, and then use that kube config for authentication to the API server. So it's still authenticating as the correct service account and everything, but it's just an extra step that needs to happen.
Okay.
James, if you want to add anything, feel free to hop in.
This is specific for Calico because they need a kube config for the Calico installer, and then kubeproxy is slightly different.
A lot of things need either a kube config or the service account token, though.
Yeah. You have to do a similar thing where you're grabbing the right token and then loading it properly. But yeah, it's all in there. If you have questions, you can ask me. Yeah, on line 56, 57, we do it slightly different.
And then we do have an image for CSI proxy for running it in a host process container. There's
we also have that. Yeah. Okay.
We currently publish it to the GitHub container registry. So if anybody wants to use it, you can use that. I think we're a little bit over. I'm going to stop the recording in the meeting. Let me see if we want to do after hours pairing or anything. Thanks everybody for attending.
Okay, I looked. There was no calendar invite for the. Am I confused? Is there a calendar invite for that Thursday bug triage, or am I just not thinking?
Let me
clearly?
stop the meeting and then we can get to that. There should be.
I didn't see it in the SIG Windows calendar.